Hey everyone, MangoSevenTV here. How we doing today? Welcome to another episode of a Path of Exile video. We're going to be going over this build. I'm currently level 97. This is the Jungron slash a couple other people's double CoC build. And I'm just going to try to walk through it. There's a ton of other guides for this already, but I find they don't go through the specifics enough, if that makes sense, but they go through like the super specifics. So we're going to try to go through all the questions I personally had going through this build and hopefully answering everything you need to know. I started off this build with 0 currency and failed miserably until I got some of the important items. So let's just go through all of that and talk about what's required to really start. This is a build where every single upgrade you get, you super feel. So like every upgrade you get, your character just gets that much stronger, whether it's tankier or whether it's just a bit more damage or survivability, all sorts of stuff like that. So let's get into this. And if you don't mind, down there, hit the sub button, helps me out. New channel, I have another channel as well if you want to check that out. And if you want to see how I made the currency for this build, again, link description, I'll leave it down there. I AFK'd, got to level 100, and made profits. So yeah, this build is based on Volatile and Detonate Dead. It is a cast on crit build. We can see my gem links right now, and I didn't start off with any of this gear basically. And before we get started, there are 2 pieces of gear that are necessities. You cannot really go without these. The build just doesn't work. One of them is going to be your Glorious Vanity. What this does is makes it so you have 5,100 life and 2,800 ES. I started off with around 4,000 life and 2,000 ES, and it was kind of sketchy, and most of my upgrades, most of my exalts have been going in to making that a little bit tankier. And we can see this notable here, 50% of non-chaos damage taken bypasses energy shield and 15% of your life as extra ES. So this kind of separates the damage you take. You take a bunch of life damage and shield damage, and that's why we need to keep both of those numbers up. And we do that a couple different ways. The main way is actually going to be the Watcher's Eye, which we need to find. Where are you? Watcher's Eye, Watcher's Eye, Watcher's Eye. Here we go. It's actually the Watcher's Eye, and this is pretty much required. I can't find a way to really get this build going without this. And this is 28 energy shield gain for each enemy hit while affected by Discipline. The other mods don't matter whatsoever. I'm not using Grace or Period of Ice. If you want to get like a super baller one, you can get an extra Discipline one, a Clarity one, a Precision one, something like that to make it a lot better. But in reality, you just need the base. The base when I bought it was about 14x, 12 to 14. I think now it's 6 to 10, depending on how many people are playing the build. And this is kind of one of those jewels where if you need it, you really, really need it. So the price is dependent on how popular the build is at the time. So these are the 2 things. And without this, maybe I can actually just go through an example here. So we're going to take off this and we'll show you just a T16 map. Let's go to my favorite place in the whole world. We'll go to the tower here. LE weakness, probably not the best here. This one, sure, whatever that is. So we're going to go do this one, and we'll show you what it looks like without the ES on hit with your energy shield. So we're going to go in here. My head is covering this, so I don't know where to put my head in this. So we can see, we'll take damage, and look at our ES. It doesn't go up, right? And the more we do, the more damage we take, the more we ignite ourselves, the less ES we get back. We basically just don't have ES. Once it gets hard enough and once you get enough like mobs going through, you just don't go up in ES. And then if we put up the energy shield on hit, we can see that we go from virtually 0 ES to 100% ES at all times, and it constantly going up. Every time you get hit, it goes up. So 100% required. You will be dying all of the time without that. And a couple other things here. You do want a couple sources of life gain on hit. So a couple of ways you can do that is life gain for each enemy hit by your spells from your rings. I have 18 on here. This is qualityed up as well. And just that is enough to kind of maintain everything I need. The other problem is mana. Mana is massive for this. I have non-channeling -8, non-channeling -8, and I have an enduring, and I have another thing here, which is Katava's Teachings, which gives you 5% life and mana regen for corpses and everything. And you know, it's still tough. Somebody suggested I can get mana on hit ring, but honestly, I tried out mana on hit jewels and it didn't work for me. So I really needed this enduring, and I couldn't really find a way to do it without it. It would be really nice to drop that enduring, but it is what it is. So that's the main things that get this build going. So outside of that, you're going to need a couple things. You're going to need Martyr of Innocence. This kind of fuels things. Right now, I just had to buy it and I 6-linked it myself. And we then have, the cool part about this is the rolls aren't super important. As I say that, look how bad my rolls are on this. That might help being a little bit higher, but I don't think it really even matters. We then have the Rage Hubris Circlet here. And this isn't required at all. When I started, all I had was a high life, high ES helm with resist. I have increased LE damage, and I have the nearby -9 fire res. If you're going for any sort of influenced helm, try to get the nearby enemies have -9 fire res. Also to note, depending on how popular the build is, Vengeance has 30% increased cooldown, could be anywhere from like 30C to 10x. When I started, this build was super popular, and this base cost me 10x, which was just a huge ripoff. We then have another required unique, which is Eye of Innocence, and we're going to need this for all sorts of stuff, right? This helps you ignite yourself. You take 100 damage while you ignite an enemy. You gain fire damage leeches life, you gain damage while ignited, and you get a 10% chance to ignite here. And combine this with Reckless Defense, which gives you a 10% chance to be ignited. You kind of ignite yourself a lot. And then this helps proc some of the cast on crit stuff. Vengeance as well is just super great with this. This is actually massive reduction in the cooldown rate there. And we also anoint Charging Offensive, which is right down here. 16% attack damage, 6% attack speed, and it keeps your endurance and frenzy charges up, which is just super good. One of the best anoints you can get. I love this one. As for a chess piece, you don't need something this good. If we hit alt, I have Elevated Shaper and Elevated Hunt, crit chance, both spell and attack crit. And I have a really high life roll, decent ES roll, and then life as max ES as well. And then I Exalt Slam stun block recovery just to top things off. So you don't need this whatsoever. If you want to get a little bit more survivability, get some crit on there. If you can, get some life, get some ES. You can get a really high ES chest and 100+ life. No problem, super cheap, and that'll do you just fine at the start. You're not going to crit as much, but that's a-okay. For trash clearing and everything, that's not going to be a problem. For bosses, it will be a little bit slower, but you'll be able to work up your crit for sure. The other thing to note here is you don't need elevated as well. You can take a hunter base, you can take I think it's Shaper that I have here, Hunter and Shaper here, mash them together and hope you hit something good, and then just craft some life, craft some ES, craft some life as ES, whatever you want to do. As for rings, they're kind of iffy. You do want Aspect of the Spider. You can fit that on one of your pieces of gear. The global crit strike chance is great here, but not necessary. Mana regen, not necessary at all. Life and life on hit is basically all I'm using this for here, and the non-channeling. So you could definitely have this ring just with the 3 prefixes, and you can get it really easily, in quotes, with Reforged Life with Harvest, since both of those modifiers are life, and then craft in the extra prefix. For my other one here, same sort of idea. I just have life and ES and resist and all sorts of stuff. That's all you really need on your rings. It's not even influence. You can get a ton of better stuff, but that's a good way to start. As for gloves, same sort of thing. I have life, ES, fire resist, lightning resist, chaos resist, all things that are good. I think I bought this for relatively cheap, and I think you can get something semi-decently as well, just to fill in your resists. You can go a little bit further on gloves with spell power and all sorts of other influence bases, but not a good starting point. We then have your carrion tether. This is my life percent belt, and I love the movement speed on here. This is massive. One of my favorite mods on anything is the movement speed, just to help it out, but of course not required. I started off with what was recommended, which is the Harbinger belt, but I didn't like that at all. I really think defenses are what you should be focusing on this build, not DPS, because your DPS is going to be there. Your defenses won't be at the start. And then we have my masterful boots here. Again, not required. I just built this recently, actually. All you need is move speed, life, ES, and resist. That's all you need total. As for flasks, we have Rot Guts, and this looks kind of weird but it's amazing. Basically, you're always having this going. You're always having onslaught. You're always having move speed. They're always up. It's great. I just bought Bottled Faith. This is brand new for me. You can use something else like a Rumies or basically anything else in this slot. Literally just put this on. I do think Enduring is 100% necessary unless you have some massive mana gained on hit. I also really like the efficiency as well. You might not be able to roll this. It's really hard to roll, but if you can, it is great to start off with here. We then have the Seething, Staunching, everything is good, good, good. I don't actually have any baubles or anything on these. Not baubles, the things that make them do things, the Enkindling Orbs, but hey, it's a good start. As for passive tree, there's a couple different ways you can go. You can go the crit multi, you can go the kill the bandits. I'm currently with the bandits, and I think that's the better choice to go. Just the skill points are really, really, really great. I'll leave a link to the PoE Ninja. I'm not going to talk about this too much here. One way to decide which to go first is not just going through PoE community PoEs. It's actually going through PoE Ninja and filtering out by level of people who use Martyr of Innocence, the staff, and cast on crit and stuff like that. And then seeing what stages people get different things. I think that's the best way to figure it out. We can see I have Constitution. We have basic jewel sockets here. We've got double crit multi, life, and int. Not necessary, but a huge boost in damage. This is also another massive boost in damage, but not necessary. This is Transcendent Flesh. And if we can see here, this jewel socket gives me 56% crit multi, which is just kind of massive. And we also get the Barbarism down here as well for the max fire resist and unwavering stance, so we can't be stunned. We have the Tireless here, reduce mana cost of skills, which is great. Not mana cost, reduce cost of skills. We have some more devotion stuff here. We have Righteous Army, which is great. You need this as well. Such a good node. And then we have Spiritual Aid with this handy dandy Thread of Hope. And this is where a lot of your passives go in and out depending on what your level is, right? Like some levels, I'll have these 2 lives allocated. Sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll have this Staff crit strike chance allocated. Sometimes I won't. There's also Sovereignty here if you want to use that. There's a ton of different things you can do. We also have some Purity of Flesh and a little bit of Chaos Resist. That kind of depends on how many free points you have. Some crit multi up here and, you know, just the usual stuff. And this is where I went semi-last. It kind of depends on if you have Unnatural Instinct. If you don't have Unnatural Instincts, it's not really worth going over to the right side. But if you do have it, this is a fantastic node for it. This node here gives you tons of ES, life, mana, damage, LE damage. Golly gee, I forgot again. Reduce Reflect, which is going to kill you anyway, so that doesn't matter. Damage if you've consumed a corpse and you're consuming corpses, and corpses you spawn have 30% max life, and you're going to be using the corpses from Lithomancers and the Stone Flayers, whatever one you want. I use Lithomancers, even though they have that really annoying sound. They're less obtrusive on the screen. And as for clusters, this is where it can get really expensive, and you can get a ton of bonus, but it's not super important. So my first one here is the triple spell damage one here. It's got Mage Hunter, Arcane Adept, and Essence Wrench. You can pretty much get any combination of these, right? Like I like Power Charge on block. You can also get Arcane Surge. You can get Essence Wrench. There's a ton of different things you can do here depending on the prices. Just pick one with 3 good nodes. These 3 nodes worked really well for me. As for my other large cluster, this one is brutal. If you're looking for the hardest thing to roll, it's probably this. Overlord, Fuel the Fight, and Martial Prowess. Martial Prowess isn't necessary. I actually don't even have it allocated right now. But Overlord is insane. You need this. You get Fortify on hit, saves you a gem link, and it's just something you have to have. It keeps your survivability up, and it is so low weight. It's really hard to roll. And what I did to roll this Cluster Jewel is I Alteration spammed on the base, which is the jewel socket here, and I think you can get a better eye level for it as well. I can't remember. Just check the item levels for it. And I rolled until I got Overlord, and then I augmented it, and then what I did after that was use the Harvest Craft to make it rare with 2 additional magic modifiers, and I finally hit Fuel the Fight, which is what I wanted as my secondary. We can see attack speed, damage leeches mana, and damage while leeching. Not necessary. Honestly, if you have a single node here with Overlord and nothing else, that's really all you need. Alternatively, you can get like a Megalomaniac to get Overlord as well. As for our 4 small clusters, these I didn't really get right until recently. You have a ton of options here. Don't just focus on the best things, because that's how all your exalts are going to go away. Once you have currency, then you can start changing them. I have basics of pain and pressure points, which are crit chance, double damage here, and then crit chance and damage. And then for the bottom one, we have basics of pain and savage response. Again, this should probably be pressure points or something like that, but it's not a massive deal. There's a couple other options you can get on these crit bases to do similar things, maybe not the same, but similar. We then have a Cooked in Flames, or Cooked Alive and Wrapped in Flame. This one is very hard to get as well. And Cooked Alive gives you a 50% increased chance to ignite and -5 fire res, and Wrapped in Flame is 20% fire damage, can't be chilled, and cover enemies in ash, which is important. If I was to say something Wrapped in Flame would be more important here, you can probably get a secondary instead of Cooked Alive, because the combination of the two is brutal. I don't know if I have this open, but the combination of the two right now are only 3 exalt, and there's 1 up. So very, very, very hard to get these 2 combinations. Just get the Wrapped in Flame and something else for now. The other part here is the we talked about pressure points and basics of pain. Yep, pretty much what it is. I like the double damage here. And let's take a look at our other jewels. We have Replica, Reckless Defense. This is necessary just for the ignite and also gives you the chance to block. You can go 4/4 for rolls. They're not too expensive either, so you can get that going pretty easily. We then have Katava's Teachings. This has been one of those things where people aren't sure if it's worth it or not. I personally should be dropping it by now, but probably would have liked it earlier. It's also kind of expensive. I think 3 exalts last I checked. So depending on whether or not you need that life and mana regen, it is maybe worth it, because this does take an extra passive point as well. Our other jewels here, we've seen that one, we've seen that one. We've seen the Glorious Vanity here. Oh, to look at my Glorious Vanity as well, I have fire damage and damage penetrates fire, crit chance, area of effect, minions deal damage, which helps me, chance to freeze, chaos res, projectile speed, movement speed, and then the Corrupted Soul here as well. We then have, also to note, I have 2 dex nodes. So getting dex on one of these rings or somewhere else would be massive for me to remove those and get another 10% life. Other jewels. Hot-Headed. So this one is amazing. Getting 20% movement speed while ignited and 20% attack speed. I probably should have upgraded this by now, but again, I bought this when I was broke, and that was the best I can do. We then have the Watcher's Eye, again, another required piece. So I think that's all the gear here. And we also have the jewel, which is life, ES, crit multi, and whatever. You can get life, ES, crit multi pretty easily. You don't have to have those high of rolls. As for the links, we've got Cyclone here. You don't need Divergent, but, 5% more movement speed is great. Awaken Cast on Crit is very important here. I don't know the mechanics behind it, but from what I've been told, you need level 3 to get the correct amount of cooldown recovery rate on this. So this might be one of your first gem upgrades you get. You also have increased critical strikes. This should be 2120, but again, I was broke when I made this. Divergent Desecrate. We have Detonate Dead, and we have Spell Cascade. So Spell Cascade is one of those ones where I wasn't really sure what it was doing. But the difference between no Spell Cascade or regular Spell Cascade and Awaken is through the roof. It's actually bonkers. It felt like literally a 50% DPS upgrade per socket. And you want 1 for here, and you want 1 for here as well. So these might be some of the first things you upgrade again once you get the build going, because I super noticed the difference when I went from regular spell to Awaken Spell Cascade. We also have the Detonate Dead and stuff. And then our second link here, we have the Cast on Crit, Inspiration, Volatile Dead, Fire Pen, Spell Cascade again, and increased critical strikes. We then have War Banner as well here, Precision, Discipline, the Flame Dash, and Vault Discipline is surprisingly not the greatest here because you have so much regen. I find with this build, if you are going to die, you're dying to one-shot. So for example, a couple things that will one-shot you at lower life is the the tower boss will one-shot you if you're not careful, especially since he charges and he's out of range from your ES on hit. The Atoll boss will one-shot you. Volatile Deads will one-shot you. Just stuff like that. So be really, really wary of one-shots like that. What else do we have here? We have Immortal Call, Bone Offering, Cast when Damage Taken, and Assassin's Mark. We then have another Cast when Damage Taken, Wave of Conviction, Combustion, and Raise Spectre. Again, you want these two little buddies here. Wait, I only have one little buddy right now, but you should have two Lithomancers just to boost the corpse life. And if you're having trouble getting Lithomancers, join chat. I use Global 6666, I think it is, and just say, hey, my Lithos died. Can anybody help me out? And they'll send you an invite. You go in there, you desecrate, you pick them up, and give them a couple chaos or something like that for their hard work. So yeah, I can't really see what much else to say here. I just wanted to do a little bit of a word vomit on all of the stuff here. I'm not really built for making guides yet, especially for a build like this, since there's already a ton of other guides out there. But I really just wanted to focus on specific items, what to upgrade and when to upgrade them. And yeah, just start spinning. Another really, really important thing here is MTX. You get more DPS from your sharks. In a more serious note, if you are having PC problems with this build, and you will because it is brutal on your processor, on your video card, the best thing you can buy, I hate that you have to buy this, is the Void Volatile. I guess we'll just go by Volatile Dead in the skill effects. The Void Volatile Dead, which basically makes your volatiles invisible and makes it infinitely easier to see, and it also takes less resources. I'm assuming the same would be said for the Void Detonate Dead, but I didn't bother getting this one earlier. I did try out the Void Volatile last league, and it wasn't as fun for me, right? Like, part of the fun of this build is just going in there and just spinning and everything dying and balls everywhere and your CoC's going off, and it's just so fantastic. So yeah, let me know if you have any more questions. This is really, I'm not the best at this. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure you hit that sub button for more ridiculous builds. I'll have a boss showcase of this up tomorrow, I think, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye, everybody.